What's going on, YouTube? And welcome to episode 4 of the Enterprise D mock tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we have about an hour-long episode. We're going to be wrapping up our Enterprise D mock tutorial. I'm pretty excited about this. Going to be making some tweaks to the lower hull, and then also working on the upper hull as well. So we're going to jump right into it and start working on our deflector dish area. And I really want to try to, if possible, make this look a little bit closer to how the Enterprise D is supposed to be. It's going to be kind of hard to pull it off from this size, but I think we can do it. We're just going to have to layer it out just a little bit here. We're going to take off whole left side. We're going to do the same thing on the right. This last row, we'll take this off. All right, so far looking pretty good. We're going to have to fill in the gaps that we have now, and then we'll go back and add in a little bit more detail. I also want to make sure that we fill in the areas with the blue and the dark gray. Don't worry about the sides, we'll fix that on the inside. We'll just have to add in another layer of blue. Not a big deal though. I'm going to swap that out with the white concrete. All right, perfect. Almost caught up to where we were before. Then the top row on the left and right, we're going to be taking that off also, just the very top. So we're slightly kind of reworking the shape of our lower hull, but I think it's going to work out in the end. It's going to look a little bit closer to what the Enterprise D is supposed to look like. All right, let's close this in. We'll be in pretty good shape. We're going to have to do the next row up, I think, maybe, to blend that in. Or at least just this last row right here. We don't have to go in anymore, but we need to shave off this row. Just the top. We're going to do the same thing over to the left side. Let's get those darker gray blocks out of there. Now we need to rework just the sides with blue to give the illusion that we've got a full dish in here. But we're getting to the point where it's getting a little bit cramped, but I think we can make this work still. Now we're getting pretty close. We still need kind of like a progression of curve on the top, like a lip. You can see I just deleted those two blocks that were put in the light. This way we don't have to add in any candles. And now we're going to do the same thing for the bottom rows. We're just going to take off a corner each side just to make it progressively curve up. We're going to take off this one now. And then let's fill in the holes. And again, this Enterprise isn't going to be one that we'll have an interior on. This is just really an exploratory build to get us prepared to build a larger scale Enterprise D, much closer to what it needs to be compared to how it was in the show. Even though mine is going to be a little bit scaled down, just because I don't want to build something so big that I have massive areas that are just empty. So I'm gonna what I plan to do is scale it in comparison to my Disco era Enterprise. So it probably needs to be a little bit more than twice the size of that ship, I think. But we'll get there when we get into that tutorial. Actually, the next up what I have is the Cerritos, but currently working on that build right now. If you follow me on Xbox, you can get your sneak peek. I'm not ready to start the tutorial just yet, but I am making steady progress. I've gotten a lot done on the saucer section on different areas of wireframes. I'm done anything pretty much related to a circle on like prep work, and I'm at this point I'm working on the pylons. And I just mapped out the ship nacelles. So still have a ton of stuff to do on it. I'm probably going to go into the rest of this week where I won't have anything for the Cerritos. I expect it next week unless something happens that prompts me to push it off. But I think at this point, if I can consistently keep getting on to get the work done that I'm getting on, I should be able to start it by next Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know that might be a little bit disappointing. I'm not going to start it right away, but this is something that I don't want to rush. I'm taking my time with it because, like, even when I did my Disco Era Enterprise, I waited 2 weeks before I actually started uploading videos. It's not going to be quite 2 weeks, even starting it next Tuesday. Um, but I still don't want to rush through it to the point that I compromise anything on the build. But still, we'll have some stuff to look forward to this week. Um, uh, Wednesday, we have the full tour of the Enterprise, the Disco era Enterprise. There won't be anything on Friday though, and then Monday we had Starship Evo. So definitely had some stuff this week. I probably should have released the music video for the Disco Enterprise this week, but when I did it over the weekend, I was like, I'll just upload it as like a surprise upload for Saturday. So I think we should be in pretty good shape, just not having a video on Friday. But still, we've gotten a lot done on the Cerritos, and I'm really looking forward to getting that tutorial out to you guys. Getting back in a little bit what we got going on here, you can see how we're slowly getting there with Enterprise D. We still have a little bit more work to do on the lip of like the deflector dish, but it's almost there. Now, what I'm doing at this point is on the lower side of the saucer on our innard oval that we added, that's supposed to be a stand-in for our phaser banks. Right behind that, we're doing a layer of half slabs just to give a little bit more of a curve. It's kind of hard to get it at this size, but I think that with this, we might even do like a full block behind this half slab to give it like a full curve, but I don't know. Let's see kind of where we land on it. But let's wrap up this last couple of rows, and then we're going to zoom out and take a look. Because we may not even want to add this. That's the thing. You always want to, when you add something on, take a look at it, see how it looks. If it looks good, keep it. If not, you could always take it off. That doesn't look too bad. I'm sure you guys can hear my cats going in the background and let me know that they're here. Yeah, so I think we're gonna have to do that with the full blocks behind the layer of half slabs that we just added. Give it a little bit more of that curve that it has underneath, because like if you look at the Enterprise D, it definitely curves more on the underside than it does up top. So that's pretty much my logic behind adding in these extra two layers, just to give it a little bit more of that curve that it needs. Anything more than this, though, um, I think we'd make the dish too big. So I think this is about as thick as we're going to make it. Yes, that doesn't look too bad. I think all things considered for this scale, um, we've got some great detail going on here. And I mean, when we scale this up, we're not going to be using the same blueprint down to the T. But there are some things that we can take from this build and try to scale it up a little bit, like what I did with the neck over the last couple of episodes, and then also the front part of the deflector dish, and then also the engines too. There's a couple of things that I think that we can try to incorporate into a larger scale. We'll have to tweak it because even if you scale it up, um, it's not going to look right basically. So we're gonna have to add in like a little bit more detail here and there, but um, it'll be enough to give us an idea of some of the shapes that we need to use. Because I think everybody would agree that when you do the Enterprise D, and what I've seen too, from my own experience, is the neck is hands down the hardest thing on the whole ship, and the um, deflector dish area, that was pretty a challenge too. That was not easy to pull off. As you can see, that's something that I'm even still that we're working on in episode 4, just because it was such um it's such like a what's the word I'm looking for. The Enterprise D basically has a really a large amount of iconic shapes to it and areas, and like it's not like where you can do like a couple of oval shapes or circles and like call it a day. You really have to nail it, because I think it's one of those ships that's like you can consider it to like the Millennium Falcon or like the Kirk's Enterprise. Pretty much everybody knows what the Enterprise D looks like, or most people. Even people that are not necessarily Star Trek fans, if they saw the Enterprise D, they're like, "Oh, that's Enterprise." So it's definitely one of those ships we have to, take our time a little bit and take a little bit of care with it to try to get it right. But I think so far we're looking pretty good. I like what I have going on here with upper hull. It's really matching with the neck, and that's really how I'm lining this up. I progressively widened out those blocks until I had it just about matching the width of the neck. And now I'm going to do half slabs going straight across. And now we're basically simulating where the shuttle bay is going to go. We're not going to be able to do too much more detail than that, just because of the scale of the ship. But at least it's there, you know. I was actually really surprised with how well this build came out, because uh, before even I did this mock tutorial, I'd never done the Enterprise D before. Really, the realm of the ships that I've built on Minecraft up until this point were Constitution class ships, the Vengeance. I built the Discovery, which it came out all right. I wasn't happy with how that build came out. I could have done a lot better on it. And then the Kelvin. Um, so I've actually been really excited about it, because this has really allowed me a chance to branch out and do something that's different from like, some of my more traditional ships that I've done. And I'm surprised with how well it's come out. I think um, there were some things that have frustrated me a little bit about this build. Just like, for example, right now we're going to bang out the impulse engines. There's really not a heck of a lot that we can do with them, just because of the size. There's just no way around it. I don't think we're not going to settle on that. Just those red blocks. We're going to do a little bit more than that, but this was like one of the parts where I got a little bit frustrated. It's like, man, I wish this thing was like at least twice the size, so I can get even just that much more detail out of it. But that's okay. This is a learning experience, and really just to get used to the shape of building this thing. So when we build the larger scale Enterprise D, we at least know what we're getting ourselves into. because this is a great exercise to kind of like give you an idea of where you're going to have problems with. Because I mean, if you're having problems now with the neck, for example, that might be something that you have problems with later on. So that was really one of the reasons why I spent so much time working on the neck and working on the front end of the lower hull, because I knew that that would be something that I'd have problems with later on. I was just trying. I figured that if I could at least come up with shapes that I can work on this scale, then I shouldn't have too much of a problem on a large scale. I don't want to jinx myself because every ship has its own set of unique challenges. Like even with the Cerritos right now, um, as I've been working on that this weekend, because when I'm recording this video, it's actually on Sunday. But no, I've been working on the Cerritos all weekend, and there were a couple of things I had to shift about that build, just because like the way that it's shaped. Like looking at it from the side, it kind of simulates a little bit like how the Enterprise D looks, but the saucer, it's not an oval, it's a perfect circle. So that was a little bit different getting that where it needed to be. And then like also just like the pattern itself and the design of the hull for the saucer is a lot different too. But we'll get into that when that tutorial comes up. My only point I was bringing up with that is that every single ship that you're going to do is always going to have its own set of challenges, and really the best thing you can do is just take your time with it, throw it down, throw something down, see how it looks. It doesn't look right, look at your references, whatever source material you're looking at, look at that with the pictures side by side, and then try to come up with a different design um, that might come out better. If you're really afraid that you don't want to delete what you have, make an alternate save. Like for like let's say like what we have right now, like let's say that I'm not happy with my neck, but I don't want to like change it and jinx it and then not be able to go back to it. So what I would do at that point is I'll just make an extra save. So I have this, what we have right now, we'll never lose it. I'll go into a new one, which is will be another version of this save. And if I don't like it, then we'll just revert back to the old one. But at least this way you can experiment a little bit more and not have to worry about losing your work. So now we're going to be transitioning over into the back end of our lower hull. We're going to be extending our pylons. You can see I went up to the next cut up, so that's how you need to angle that out. And other than that, they are exactly the same width and everything. So we're literally just going to be extending them forward by a couple of blocks. We're going to do the same thing on the left side. Again, make sure you're going with the cut. Now, the only thing that you will not have to do with this tutorial that you will see me extend the length of the nacelles, the engines. You will not have to do that. And the reason for that is that in episode 2, when I had last part of the recording and I showed you guys how to uh, when we went over all that stuff in the end of the episode, we had built out the engines. The dimensions I gave you for them are actually the finished engines, and they're a little bit longer than what you see right now. Once we're done building the struts to hold the engines, we'll make them a little bit longer, but again, you can just go ahead and discard that because we have already completed that step. And I think we'll probably just fast forward past it because there will be no need to show it. Should have probably just edited that out, but make a point to try to stay on top of that in the future. All these videos actually were pre-recorded, and I had already edited them. So when that happened to me in episode 2, I just kind of made the decision when I lost that file. I was like, I'll do the best I can, retrieve what I can. This way I can go over everything. And I think it worked out pretty good. I was able to get pictures at least of everything that I changed and have pictures before and after and show you references. I didn't have anybody comment that they had an issue with it. If you do, for whatever reason, drop a comment below. I'm usually very responsive in the comment section. I'll try to help you out. If I don't get to your comment, chances are I'll get to it in a episode. But I'd say in the case for the Enterprise D, if you're getting stuck, I will definitely answer in the comment section. But I don't think you'll have too many problems with this build. It was some of the shapes on here is pretty cut and dry. Little bit of it, took some finagling, as you can see, because we're going out to episode 4. I didn't even intend this to go out to episode 4. I was really expecting this to be like a 2 or 3-part tutorial, just like my mock Enterprise, my mock disco, or not my disco, the Star Trek Beyond Enterprise. Um, but that just goes to show that the problems that I had with the neck and the front part of the lower hull, it was just a little bit tricky. And I wish that there was a formula that I can give you that would just make it come out perfectly. But that's just the way it's going to be on Minecraft when you're building these things custom from scratch by hand. Some things are going to work, some things are not going to work, and you just got to be able to try different things. But a lot of it will have to do with looking at your reference material and then trying to make that work within Minecraft and using some of the patterns that you develop over time. And you'll hear me talking about that a lot. And one of the simplest patterns that I use on here is going by the cuts and making sure that my cut patterns match, because that and I get it all the time that people always tell me that my ships look so clean, and that's honestly why. That is the secret, that I make sure that my line work on my cuts and the progression, it usually always matches up. I don't like having random blocks sticking out here and there, like it makes no sense to me. Um, my neck on this ship, that's a great example of going by the cuts. You won't really see any lines on this ship where the cuts don't match up, and it makes it look that much better, I think. Another thing that I use too, I do get asked time from time what materials I use. I've used different stuff in the past, but what I've been using recently is the concrete blocks. You can use any of the concrete blocks, and your build is going to come out fantastic. Um, and where you need to use the half slabs, I use the quartz half slabs, and then stairs, I use the quartz stairs. But other than that, I really only veer out of that when I absolutely have to. I really like the concrete slabs. They give you a nice, clean look, and there's not a lot of pixelation or junk going on with them. I used to use the quartz blocks before because they kind of looked a little bit like hull plating, but when I built a ship in the white concrete, like for example the Disco Air Enterprise, like it looks so much cleaner. Like if you looked at my Star Trek Beyond Enterprise A, for example, it looks so much cleaner. You guys can see, getting back in a little bit what I got going on here, I skipped extending out our engines, which we've already done, and now we're going to be moving right back to the front end of our lower hull, where the deflector dish is. Trying to figure this thing out. Basically, a puzzle. And just to outline in the very front, we're going to be switching that to the darker gray. Nothing we can do about the half slab, so don't worry about that right now. Or I thought I was going to be switching those out. You can discard that actually. That goes back to being a Gemini for you. I'm very known to change things from time to time, and if I don't like it, I will change it right back. But again, that's just a rule that throw it down. If you don't like it, change it, because it's going to bother you until you do, or until you do change it. That's how I am, at least anyway. So we need to grab a couple of quartz slabs because I don't have them on my person right now, and then I also need to grab sea lanterns again. I'll put them on the yellow because we're not going to be using that. We're going to go up by half a slab, maybe, to give that progression. I don't know how I feel about that. Looks a little bit janky. I know that we're not going to be veering off from this too much, because I feel like we're there, but we're not like there. Like we need a little bit more of that progression. that the curve that the Enterprise D has. This could maybe work. Let's get rid of that block, move that up just by one. Now see, that doesn't look bad. We get rid of those two blue blocks right there and then move them up maybe by one, and we put a half slab on top of it so you can't see it. Sorry about that. I usually try to edit out so you can't even see me switching over. Like I said, I'm trying to get a little bit better at my editing on here, but I'll be the first one to admit that I am a uh, noob, or what, I don't know even know what the kids would call that today, but that's what we used to call it, that you were a noob if you were new to something. And editing is something I've always have never been fully comfortable with doing myself. But I've been trying to make a point as I've been doing my YouTube channel on here to get a little bit better with it. And you can definitely expect higher quality. Hopefully, you won't be, if I am switching over to a different part of live capture, they won't be see the transition of that. We're going to move this circle up by one. I think this might be a little bit more fitting. We can't put a strip in the very center. That's the only thing that sucks. We just don't have the room to do it. But that oval shape, I mean, that's very reminiscent of the Enterprise D. I think that's very appropriate. I don't know how I feel about that. As you can see, there's a couple of things that we can do here to try to illuminate this area. But I do know one thing, that what I just did right here, I do not like that one bit. You can see I even fill in the center here with the brown. And if there was like a slight gap in here, like if, for example, if uh, if they had colored concrete half slabs, for example, and that you could layer, we could totally do that. And I actually had gone on Mojang's website today and made a suggestion, or I tried to make a suggestion to add that, and somebody had already done it. And there's over 5,000 people that have requested colored concrete half slabs and stairs. Um, I really hope that Mojang does add that, because I think that it's something that needs to be added in this game. It would, the things that it could allow people to do would just be so much more than what we can even presently do at the moment. And you can see going by the cut here, now that's where I'm adding this gray line going down. So you can see I'm going again, sticking to that pattern that I stick to going with a cut. You can apply that to several different things on your build. And there's just so many different things that I use when I'm building to try to, in my arsenal, to help me, like how I build out my wireframe, the structure of my ship, to going by the cut, to if I do one thing on one side, I do it on the other. And I know that there's probably about 50 other things that I'm forgetting off the top of my head that I'll remember when we're doing it. But the point is, I'm trying to make is that you'll pick these traits up yourself as you're doing more and more of these. And hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial and you stick with me through some of the newer tutorials I have coming up. And there's definitely new tutorials coming up. I have the Cerratos, which I'm working on right now. That is a certainty going to happen. Along with the Enterprise D, that is definitely going to happen also. Past that, anything's possible. I have not made any decisions. I really don't want to think too much outside uh, the Cerratos and Enterprise D right now. Um, but once I start getting close to completing the Enterprise D, I would like to start talking more about what I'm going to do after that. So definitely keep that in mind. If there's stuff that you'd like to see me build, definitely drop a comment below. Even if I'm not ready to switch to taking requests for new builds just yet, does not mean I'm not willing to hear new build ideas. Because I'm always going to be looking for new ideas. Even if I don't get to your build right away, there probably will come a point in time or something that I'm into, I will probably pan back around and do it. Because I can tell you that pretty much every single build that I've done on my YouTube channel has been something that somebody's asked me to do. So keep that in mind. But getting back in a little bit, what we got going on here, you can see I'm starting to add the pinstripe in, a little bit of the detail in on the ship. Enterprise D definitely needs some of that. We'll say the only thing I don't have going on the sides here, and I don't remember if I do it or not, that they're not as pointy as they need to be, like the Enterprise D. But that's something that we can fix when we do the larger scale. There's not that much that we can do about this size, or even like this curve in the neck. I mean, I get pretty close to how this points out as much as we can, but it's not. I think I'm just nitpicking it. You can see that even on this, my version, that the shuttle bay is a little bit further back on the neck, as here it's a little, because mine is probably like right here, but you just don't have a ton of room to work with. You can see I'm using the 3D modeled Enterprise D. That's something that I would highly recommend on any build that you're doing. If you're not certain with how it looks, having a 3D model to look at that you can move around with and pan around, look at it from different angles is so helpful. Sometimes it's way more helpful than a picture could ever be, because a picture you can't, move it around and look at it from different angles. Um, the only thing that would be better than this would it be if you had the physical model. But this is something that I definitely like to do all the time. Um, anyway, you can see, getting back in a little bit what we got going on here. My cat is running around here acting a fool right now. Apologize for that if you can hear her, but she's a Maine Coon and she loves to run around and play with her brother and sister. I actually have four cats. Oh wow, that looks pretty good. I'm very happy with how that came out. It's a little bit wider on the sides here compared to the actual model, but that's okay. I don't think it looks bad, but that's something that we can address when it gets bigger. There's like one or two things that I would change, that I'm not going to change on the mock, because I was happy enough with how it came out that I don't think it was warranted enough to change it. Because then at that point we would have been going into episode 5. But I think all things considered, this build came out really well. I'm happy enough with it where, I definitely put my stamp of approval on it. And if you're looking to build Enterprise D for the first time, this is really the build for you, because it's not too complicated, it's small enough, and it's a great. I don't know if it's necessarily a great beginner build. If you've never built starships before, Constitution class or something, maybe even smaller than that, might be better for you. But building on a scale like this is definitely best, because you're not committing a ton of time into something that you've never done before. And you may have problems with scaling and things like that. I know that when I first started out on Minecraft, I had issues with scale and making things in proportion to different areas of the ship, and that's just something that you'll a trait that you'll build over time. One of these days, I'll show the progression video of all my enterprises, like side by side, so you can see where I've gone, like just over the past 10 years of building ships on here. Um, but it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. If you enjoy building, and you like building ships, you can definitely, anybody can learn this if you're willing to take the time to do it. You see, I'm just moving the impulse engines back a little bit because they cut into the dish, but there's just, it's the one compromise that I keep talking about that I had to make on here. I couldn't make the impulse engines quite like how they're supposed to be, and that's entirely just because of the scale. If this thing were the size that I wanted it, the large scale to be, we wouldn't have an issue with it. But we'll just do the best we can, and look at it this way too. This is a great challenge, because when you build smaller, you really are limited in a lot of ways on things that you can do. And that can be great if you're starting out, and if you're an experienced builder, that can be a challenging exercise in itself, because you're trying to get the maximum amount of detail out of the ship on a small scale. um, I think we just went right back to what we had before. Only thing maybe I could do is delete. Hmm. This was the other thing too. I was trying to get the positioning of them right. I think that might be maybe a little bit more appropriate, because you can see the impulse engines, they're like not right up on the neck. And that's kind of where I had them, like where like these strips are. That's where I had mine, I think, originally. Moving them over is going to help. It's still not going to help me with having them built in a little bit more into the saucer like it is in the 3D model, but at least their placement will be a little bit closer to what it's supposed to be. So far, we're looking pretty good. We've already shot through the first 40 minutes. Um, I was only actually expecting this to go through 20. I didn't think that we've gone through that much time. So we're down to the last 20. Still have a couple of things left to do on the lower hull, at the front end, and also on the back end of the neck. I'm also not taking into consideration, forgot that we fast forwarded through the portion of the build for the engine, since we've already done that. So I think that shaved off about 10 minutes or so from the episode. This was kind of my thought before. I didn't say anything. I hesitated, where I could take the red block and maybe move it in one. That's like about as close as we're gonna get it, I think, maybe. I think that looks pretty good. Now we're gonna get a little bit more detail out of our neck. It has these are different shuttle bays. Not a lot of people know this, but the Enterprise D actually has 3 different shuttle bays. Um, so that's something that we're going to be working on right now. We're not really going to be building it out to what we did for this one. Really, we're just putting the gray strip down and calling it a day. Then we built out the middle strip in the middle here. It goes all the way down to the impulse engine. I like that, but this corner here is sticking out. It's messing me up a little bit. We got to try to blend it in a little bit if we can. I don't know if I thought of it in this video or not, What we could do too is just on this side right here, add another layer of half slabs, another layer of half slabs there, and call it a day. I'll give it a nice progression. And of course, I do the opposite. And what I'm going to try to do is basically extend it out to where this is just a different way of blending it in, um, where it's still the same principle of what I had in my head of adding another layer out. Two corners here, those maybe need to be half slabs. You can see I'm trying to make it a little bit closer to the picture because it doesn't widen out that much in the back like I have it. It's kind of widens out a little bit, but then it just goes straight back. There we go. That looks pretty good. I think the only other thing that we could really do to it, um, we can move that gray strip back maybe one. I don't know. Then again, it's not really here in the picture, but I think we're going to do that anyway. We're just going to move it right underneath the half slabs. There we go. You see going around the bridge kind of has like this little gray circle. We don't have the room to do that. I could have made this piece maybe a little bit bigger, but I think uh, it wouldn't fit with the scale. So that's really the reason I'm keeping it the size that it currently is. Don't know how I feel about that line that we just added. It's the only thing we're going to have to do on the side, so we might have to thicken it up ever so slightly. That's the only thing that's not about spot on, I think, with this scale of it anyway. Then, of course, we got to slightly retweak the front end. Still working on that. We're not done yet. The shape of it's great, but we got to add one more layer to the front of the top row where the deflector dish is. But we're jamming. We're getting down to the last 13 minutes of this episode, and then that will conclude this tutorial series. And you can officially mark a done stamp on this one. That'll move us up actually to 3 tutorials now on the channel, which will be pretty cool. And then the Cerratos will move us up even to 4. She's looking pretty good though. Could even leave the front of the deflector dish alone. I don't think anyone would bat an eye at it too much, but again, it's just it's not quite there. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to add another layer to our lower hull to try to fatten it up a little bit, just a little, to make it match what we were just looking at a moment ago. Then we're going to add another layer here. Same as going with a cut. So that doesn't look too bad. Now let's figure out how far back we're going to bring this. You can see I'm going with a cut of the neck to line that up. So that's literally the last cut on the neck before we get down to the lower hull. Right there. All right, so we have our hull extended on the left. We're going to do the same thing on the right, and then we're going to fill in between. So I'm double check, make sure everything matches up. All right, perfect. Let's fill this in. Don't worry about those half slabs. We're just going to cover them up. We're just going to get entombed forever. There we go. See, that was the extra oomph of thickness that we needed. Now, once we fill this in on the left side, now we'll be looking really good. And it looks like I missed a row. That's okay. So I'll make sure we do on the left side that matches on the right side. So I'm literally just going to bring it up to this cut line right there. Or stop right there. Leave one. Perfect. And fix that just a little bit more. I'll add another row of half slabs. Do the same thing right here maybe. Again, I'm going by the rule. If I do one thing on the left side, I do it on the right side just to keep myself consistent. I just took off a row on each side. See, there's not that much blending that we can do without making that whole area just a lot bigger than it needs to be. So that's why I'm just kind of settling on where it's at right now. There's just really not that much that we can do with the size, so we're just going to call it a day based off what we have. I think it looks good enough that we can walk away from that area as is the underside of the ship and no one will bat an eye at it. She's looking good. We're going to be making our last tweaks here and calling it a day. Need to fill in that block right there in the corner, or we just take out a row. I think that looks better. And we just got to do the same thing on this side. We're going to take off this whole row right here going all the way back. And we're going to replace that with half slabs. We put white concrete block there. We're looking good. Just a couple of things left to do. This is really a point where if you're not sure, again, just pull out your screenshots or your 3D model and just start looking at it and comparing it to your current build and just trying to think, okay, what else do I need to add to this build that's not matching the picture? That colored darker gray block, we replace that with white quartz. It'll make it blend in just a little bit better. And then even though we're using a couple of different colors, can't really tell that too much between them, between the quartz and white concrete. I mean, you can definitely tell in between them. You could make the argument, well, you just should have used white quartz altogether. But the Enterprise D isn't that bright of a white. It's kind of got like an off gray to it. So only use the half slabs when I have to, but even the gray ones, the gray half slabs, they don't even come anything close to the Enterprise D's color. So we're kind of, at a rock and a hard place here. We got to use what we have available to us. But all things considered, I don't think it looks very bad at all. I think it looks pretty good. And that gives it like that nice sharp angle in the front that the Enterprise D is known for right there. And there's only one thing left to do, just one thing on the back end of the lower hull, and that's going to wrap this one up. But I think we have an Enterprise D on our hands here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed this build. This was a ton of fun for me to do. I said, I was really stressing over how well this was going to come out, and I'm very pleased with it. If you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know how you felt about it in the comment section. If there's something that you didn't like, let me know in the comment section. Regardless, I would love to hear from you. At the end of the day, there is a million and one ways that you can build one of these things. This is just one of a million ways to do it. But hopefully, this inspires you to give you some ideas on things that you can do. And if you love it, feel free to copy it. Um, that's why the tutorial is available to you, so everybody can have the opportunity to do it. Because I know how it feels when you're trying to start out. You don't have access to information on how to build a ship. So that's really the purpose of doing this tutorial. So you do have that access now. I see that doesn't look too bad. And now we're literally just going to move the light gray blocks over to make this strip a little bit more whole rather than scattered all over the place on the sides. I think that looks a little bit closer to the picture now. Oh yeah, really nice. What we got the sides here smoothed out with the half slabs. Gives it a nice look. But there you have it. That is your very own Enterprise D mock tutorial for your very own Enterprise on your own world. I hope that again that you enjoyed this tutorial series as much as I have enjoyed doing it for you. I do think that's going to wrap up this episode though. And if you did enjoy this video, if you can please help me out and hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel, I can't thank you enough for that. Everybody that takes the time to watch my videos, comments, that likes them, it means the world to me. And if you can just do me one last favor and maybe share this video, I would be forever in your debt. In my quest to grow out the channel, because again, the more subscribers I get and the more views that I'm getting, more comments and likes and so on, the more content you can expect to come out more frequently. I definitely want to keep this going, so please keep watching. And in fact, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes, typically Tuesdays through Fridays. Um, and you can always catch my new Starship Evo builds on Mondays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you again. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I will catch you in the next video.